So Lee, bit of background. You're a local lad, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, born and bred, as they say. Born in Luton of Lutonian parents. My mum's family are from London originally. My dad's family from somewhere up north. They all passed away before we really got to explore that very deeply. But mum and dad met in Luton, Limbury and Lucy, and then got married, and then come back to Luton when dad come out of the army, and then I was born here in 72, lived here until I left, and then came back again.
Yeah, and you were one of the Stopsley School people.
That's right, I went to Stopsley High,
St
Matthew's Juniors. So always lived like in Hightown, I say always. I was down on Brook Street till I was 8, and then Frederick Street from then till I went away to college. And then, and then various dociles.
Are you still here?
Yes,
like
we went away for a bit. We went away early 2000s when things seemed to be 33 was kind of gone. Yeah. And I met someone and we decided we were going to go off, and she was in London doing her doctorate, so I was like, I might as well. Yeah. But then, then we both from Luton, so we got drawn back. And then,
Luton's in this little valley and people can't escape it.
Yeah, people have spoken. I was in America in 1992, and I met some people from a place called Altoona in Pennsylvania, and that's a similar kind of faded industrial thing on the edge of stuff, edge of big cities. And forgive me, the people of Altoona, if I've mischaracterised your town. I was only there briefly, and I met some people there, and they spoke about the Altoona vacuum. Yeah. Like people leave, but they sort of swoop around and they always end up coming back.
Always come back.
And it's a bit like, I think Luton's very similar, because when I left, I was like, get me out of here. And even when I went away to college, like it was like, get me out of here. What a terrible place. Yeah. But then you kind of go away and you don't find the connection or the bloody mindedness, the determination to do it yourself. So I've never found it anywhere else. But then this is my place, so I don't know whether it does exist other places, but it's just not my version of it. Excuse me, runny nose.
So did you get involved with creative arts at the school?
Not really, no.
Because your degree is in...
My degree ended up being, that's some more sixth forms influence,
okay.
and various other people that I met in bands and things. But no, at school I was sciences and English.
Okay.
And in Stopsley at the time, and again, forgive me if I'm missing stuff out, but basically there was a school band and a school orchestra. Yeah. And that's where the artistically creative people went. Yeah. And there were musicals produced sometimes. I cannot sing, so I was never going to be in any of, not any big roles in any of those. There were little bits and bobs here and there. I'd done quite good with being in school plays in the junior school, but Stopsley wasn't. And then but I was becoming peculiar, and then I went to sixth form and met the other sort of peculiar people from the area. And then we started going to the Switch Club, which was like, band, national touring low-level bands, but all put on independently by Nick and Bernie, who were local. Bands at the 33, People Show at the 33, the Cafe at the 33. John Hegley, the first time I saw him was at 33, April 1990, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask when you walked into the building first.
Well, the first time I went in the building was much earlier than that. It was my dad took me down there because there was a craft and arts fair of some sort. And that would have been probably mid-80s. I wasn't going out on my own. I still had to, if I was going anywhere, my dad was taking me. And I remember buying some small painted stones that had been painted to look like ladybirds.
All right, cool.
And upstairs in what I now know to have been like the dance studio space upstairs opposite the little recording studio, the little rehearsal studio space.
The box,
Yeah, there was some tables laid out and some local crafty types for selling stuff. So I knew it was there, and then you'd always walk past it. And but the first time I went there, I think as a I hesitate to say adult, but as a teetering on the brink of adulthood, would have been John Hegley in 1990 when I was about 17.
Right.
Or the People Show. I don't remember whether the People Show preceded John Hegley or John Hegley, but it's all kind of somewhere 89, 90.
Yeah, I think 89. I think it was a people show. We've got issues because we have a lot of programs.
Yes, yeah.
We
So
have
you'll know
dates, but no year. So we've had to work backwards with
one of the reasons when I do my own events, I always put the year on the date. Is exactly that reason. I want to know when it was. I've always been nostalgic, even when I was like, had nothing to look back at. So I always like to know what year it was. And also saw, and obviously the band I was in, Papa Jellyfish. We played at 33, also in 1990.
That was 1990 as well.
Sixth form band thing. Was it 1990? Yes, I think it was. We formed in 89, 90. We played sixth form lunchtime concerts twice. Then we did 33. Then we did a reunion at Mr. Bumble's in 1991,
oh, wow.
which means we must have had our meteoric rise, fall, split, musical differences, and came back together. And it was all over by the winter of 91.
Yeah. So you didn't get involved. That would have been too early, really, with any of the events at the Royal Hotel that were predated 33.
Yeah, no, I'm not old enough for those. Yeah. No, it was all 33, and there was the cafe, and it felt very cool, and you didn't really know whether you were supposed to go in there, whether you needed to be some kind of special arty sort.
Yeah.
But then you gradually, by going, you kind of find out that it's not that special, but anyone can be an arty sort if they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a matter of inclination.
Yeah, the size of 33 worked against us in some ways because people thought you had to be part of a special kind of person to go into place, but it wasn't. It was just because it was small.
It was small, but it also had that feeling of organicness.
Yeah.
Of and there was always like people's stuff on the walls, stuff for sale, and the idea that I think this thing is like, so I knew it was there and we played there, and I didn't realise that. I can't remember how we got booked to play there. I think it was a sixth form band showcase, and there were 4 bands. There was another one called Manjack Control, whose headline in the programme was Total Experience Music. I have no idea what that means. We were billed as Luton sixth form group with DJ, because Nick from the Switch came to. That's what it was. It would have been somebody from the Switch, because Bernie was sort of notionally our manager,
right,
in one way or the other. And because we were regulars at the Switch, and we saw early 90s bands there, and we were regulars, and then we were helping carrying. We figured out that if you help the DJ carry his record boxes into the building, then you'd get in for free.
Yeah, just not leave.
Yeah. So that was our little dodge, and then that was happening down at Bumbles as well, because Bernie used to run a regular night there. So it came back in, sort of having been to People's Show and doing some drama things. Did a thing, saw a company called sixth form, a company called Black Mime came in.
Oh yeah.
And Black Mime eventually became a company called They Wouldn't.
Right. Okay.
With Matthew Barrett.
Yeah.
And he ran a thing called Young, Gifted and Bored at 33, which was like a Saturday morning drama workshop thing for teenagers. Which I went along and did that. And that would have been around the same time.
Yeah,
91.
Yeah, that period, 91.
Yeah, and so we did a show at 33 with that, and we supported Black Mime doing their show, and then I saw them again at Glastonbury in 93, and sort of, oh hello, remember us, and we worked together.
Yeah.
Well, I worked together, I came to your shows back then, and they were doing some stuff then that we'd seen in sort of nascent form.
Yeah.
And again, that's the other thing as well about like connections, because it was informal. You could make your connections, and you sort of sit. And John Hegley was like, when I first saw him, like this kind of revelation. And then like now, he invited me to his birthday.
Yeah.
And that's and I kind of learnt this thing of like, you meet people, and then you just hang on to the number, or you stick a card or a scrap of paper in your jacket, in your top pocket, and then later on, if you've got ambitions, you're sort of building your network, but you also remember that the network needs to remain friendly, and if you're not doing any climbing, you're connecting.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about a small venue was that relationship between the punter and the artist.
Yeah.
gaps weren't so large, and people used to chat afterwards in the the illegal bar, whatever it was.
Well, we used to, yes, but it also allowed you to see that putting these things on, that having these things happen, was not outside of the realm of possibility. Yeah. You know, you might have, it was that maybe stops those of us that kind of came up through that scene from being bitter and grumbly and moany about, you know, you saw these people today like, oh, you know, Luton's not what it was, blah blah blah. So we'll do something then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we kind of learnt to do something about it by being shown that it was quite easy.
Yeah.
We used to come to you when we started doing Can't Believe It's Not Poetry. Well, I didn't start it, Lawrence started that, but when we started doing tonsil tennis.
Oh, tonsil tennis, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
We used to come to you and just say a date. Yeah. Can we do the 5th? And you go, yeah. And you go, we'll have the bar. You'll have the bar. We'll have the door. And that was the scope of the arrangement. Yeah. But then the nights were great.
Yeah.
And sometimes they were sparsely attended. Sometimes they were rammed. And Paul was gigging on the London circuit. I was starting to do a bit of that. So we were meeting people from that circuit and bringing them to Luton. And then we get sort of like return invites. And we did some stuff in the library and all sorts of different things. And again, it was about just making connections and hanging on to the connections. And and now what I do now is kind of not necessarily directly because of those connections, but because I learnt how to do that, or how important to doing that was by seeing the attitude of do it yourself, do it anyway. I call it do it anyway. Yeah. Like no one likes us, we don't care.
Yeah, I mean we always talk about that now, sort of in terms of bottom up funding and trickle down funding, which never seems to reach people. Well,
also people don't necessarily want it because it's faintly patronising.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and I think that's the thing that I think people come round to, is that the attitude that you guys were working with all them years ago and continue to work with is the one that works if you really do want to draw out new generations of artists or grassroots artists, or just provide space. All you have to do is sort of go, it's here, step back, do you need any help? No? Terrific, on you go.
Yeah, and just put that in a social context as well, and makes it easier. Yeah,
and let people, you know, balls it up, do bad stuff and good stuff, because there's this notion that, you know, to be an artist you have to actually be a good artist. Like when I say good, I mean someone who makes a living at it.
For sure.
And that's not the case at all. No. You know, to be an artist, at the risk of being ferociously pretentious, to be human is to be an artist.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing anyone did when they had enough food was start painting on the walls of the cave.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute instinct. Yeah. People sing and dance before they walk and talk.
Sure, and even now young kids scribble with a crayon, don't they?
Exactly, uninhibitedly. Yeah. And to try and preserve a space where you don't have to go, well, here's my business plan. Here's how I intend to monetize my content within blah blah.
Yeah, I mean that's the upside down bit about it, is that, you know, if you did something and you thought you could get some funding for it, you didn't change your needs because of the funding streams. Now people just write something because it fits something else.
Yeah,
you know,
to tune in, and you know, if you are looking to move into not having to have a day job, then absolutely, totally understand the pragmatism of doing that. But to even begin to be in that position, I think you need to be able to try stuff out for yourself in a space that's, you know, bigger than your own bedroom, just a couple of times to see if it's for you, to see if you can do it, you know, and that's kind of this is the great, regardless of, like, you know, saw John Hegley, saw Joe Brand, saw various other people on very small stages in very small rooms, you know, and now you see them on the telly and stuff, and that's sort of charming and exciting in a certain way. I was there first, that kind of thing. Well, not first, but you know. But the other side of it is that you see possibilities, and you are shown that you can be part of those possibilities. Not told, not lectured, not sent on a course, not given a handout. You know, like you go to this thing and then you get interested and you chat to the fellow or the lady who put it on, and they go, "Oh yeah, we bumped into them once. We said you want to do it." And then when I moved to London, I was doing gigs on the circuit, and this guy I know had Will Self come and do his little gig above a pub, and I said to him, "How'd you get Will Self?" And he went, "I just went to one of his gigs, and when he said, 'Are there any questions at the end?' I stood up and said, 'Yeah, will you come and do a reading for me?' And Will Self said, 'Yes, chat to me afterwards.'" And it's that attitude. So clearly, that he was from Goole, this fella. So it's clearly not, particular to Luton. But I do think maybe it's particular to people coming from places that no one thinks very much of, that don't have a national reputation, but there's still a hunger to see good stuff and a desire to make good stuff. So you make it and show it, and then you find that people come out of the woodwork. I think Luton is very much, there's two sorts. I hate these kind of things. But there's people that grumble about it, and there's people that, it doesn't exist, so I'll make it.
Yeah,
and you've got the Goth Night that's on now. People want it, so it happens. The Covenant happened for all those years. People wanted it, so it happened. The Switch, people wanted it, so it happened. And all you got to do is figure out how, and be sufficiently determined, and not put off by a couple of quiet ones or no one coming, or people saying no, you shouldn't be doing that. No one really says that, but you know what I mean. It's easy to get discouraged, but I think I might have ended up being on the other side of that divide and being grumbly and moaning and no one does anything for me, if I hadn't seen that I could do it for myself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what 33 showed.
Yeah.
And Luton did as well. And I suppose it all comes out of punk, doesn't it? This kind of, we can do it for ourselves. And also at the back end of the 60s and, all that.
Yeah, there was a different attitudes about lots of different things. But I think that's the legacy of, 33 and like people just getting self-determination about their own creativity. Yeah, precisely that. Yeah. So that 91 period, was that when you started actually writing yourself? Or?
Yeah, well, yes, I suppose so. Or seeing that anything other than like teenage dribble. But I didn't perform anything until 90. Well, I did a degree in creative arts, drama and writing. And I thought I was going to be... I wanted to be a rock star, and that turned out it wasn't going to be the case because I couldn't really play and I can't sing. Which, a certain period in history was a bonus.
It was a bonus.
Yeah, but at that point people were a bit more into the craft of things. But I knew what I loved was little rooms with strange stuff happening in them.
Yeah.
And I think if I'd been, in Berlin in the 30s, I would have been in the cabaret clubs, and if I'd been, in New York in the 60s, I would have wanted to find the factory and love being part of a scene. I love the idea that I was seeing something that was a bit special and a bit particular and a bit peculiar, and that not everyone could handle. And then I found out I wanted to make that myself, and it started out being music, and then tried making films and blah blah. And I think I saw people around me doing stuff, and I'll have a go at that, I'll have a go at that. And it turns out that the thing I'm sort of best at is, that's the thing I'm best at, is talking nonsense for hours.
Yeah.
But sometimes
writing some nice stuff.
But sometimes you can write that down. And then John Hegley. So when I started doing spoken word performance, poetry, whatever you want to call it, it was kind of like I can do that kind of staccato delivery with the drop off and the wait for the funny word thing that John does. And I wrote a couple of pieces and did a couple of gigs, sort of stood up. The first one, I think actually I read a piece about having a bath at one of the I Can't Believe It's Not Poetry Nights at 33. That would have been in 96. And then
because that was pre. I may be wrong here, but that was all pre the poetry slam idea, wasn't it?
Well, that happened around the same sort of time.
Around the same time, yeah.
And John Paul O'Neill was coming out of London running the London British Poetry Slam stuff. And I kind of got involved with that for a while. Went down to Chat's Palace and things.
Oh yeah, Chat's Palace.
But I first met Paul when he came and did a thing, Poetry Slam in Luton.
Yeah.
And there was one at 33 and one in the library. And then I ended up being on the Luton Poetry Slam team with Thomas Stevens, Cesira Forth, and Paul Rafferty and me. And we did solo bits and a joint bit. So we did all of those things. And then that's kind of how I got onto the London circuit. And then once I started doing the stuff with John Paul O'Neill, then I found out there was Big Word, Express Excess, all these other little mid-90s nights in London, and I started being involved in those. And then and then after that, moved. When was that? Then probably ran out of money, to be honest, and couldn't get up to London all the while. And then then I actually finally got a job. I got a real job for the first time in 1999.
That was a teaching job, was it?
That was a technician's job.
Ah, okay.
And then I then met Anna and we moved to London, and I went for a technician's job at College in North East London and went in to be a technician and came out as a teacher.
Yeah.
And then in them days, them dim and distant days, they would train you on the job.
Yeah.
And they didn't charge you, they'd cover your training costs and stuff because they was interested in getting notionally professional people into teaching. And then I've been a teacher of one sort or another ever since.
So that transition between performing and promotion, was that seamless, or did it just organically?
Well, Paul Rafferty was putting the events on, and I joined in and helping him doing that. So tonsil tennis was like Paul largely drove that, and then I was got more and more involved. And we had Johnny Clark on, and Tim Wells, Francesca Beard, loads of people who are sort of now still working and doing good stuff. I'm not sure if we ever had Selena Saliva, but I know Selena Godnaz now. But she was around on the circuit at the same time, and then we moved. Then 33 went. Yeah. We moved it to Artesian. We ran there for a little while, and that's when then I decided I was going to go to London. I moved to London. We moved to Wood Green. Went down to. And I thought, how am I going to... So me and Anna were fine, but I was like, how are we going to meet people in London? We've left circles of friends. And there was a thing for a writing group at Wood Green Library. Right. So I went along and joined the writing group and started doing the writing a bit more seriously then. This is 2002. And then the writing group, we were meant to pay professionals to come and run workshops for us, but we all decided we didn't need to do that. We could run our own workshops. So this money started building up in the subs fund. And then we looked at it and went, well, we've got all this money in the bank account, what shall we do? So we did an anthology, and we did a launch event for the anthology, and off the back of that we went, well, why don't we put on a gig? So then we put on, so the first Utter, with the exclamation mark, was set up by Wood Green Library Writing Group, word for word. So it was Word for Word presents Utter, and that was in 2003, and there was a powerhouse of a guy called Richard Tyrone Jones, who kind of had the time, because I was by this point teaching, so it was like a hobby thing, but Richard had the time and the space to put into it, so he developed Utter into this kind of storming thing that ran gigs all over North London, in Camden and the Green Lanes and various other places, right the way through that first part of the 21st century, culminating in having the Utter season of spoken word gigs at the Edinburgh Free Fringe in 2009. And then we went up to the Free Fringe 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I think was the last time I went. And Utter kind of helped to establish spoken word as a separate strand on the Free Fringe, on the PBH Free Fringe up at Edinburgh. And now people are making careers
from all of that.
Out of that as well. And all power to them, terrific.
Yeah.
So we did that, and I did a solo show 1 year and a duo show a year or two prior, and then whilst that was all going on, I moved back to Luton, and then I changed my job, so I finally had some headspace to do some things again. And then so Utter Lutonia, as Utter London kind of wound down, because Richard moved on to do other things. He had a sitcom on Radio 4, and then he got really ill, unfortunately. But while that was winding down, I sort of said, well, can I carry on using the name? And then Utter Lutonia started in 2013. So we just did our 10-year anniversary this year. Yeah. And again,
sell-out show.
And John Hegley sell-out. And kind of, this is the thing. This is maybe a nice way to end me talking about all this stuff. Is it kind of came full circle? I had a headline show sold out in the new arts venue, the Hat Factory in Luton, and it's new to us.
Yeah.
But I also helped to relaunch that arts venue when it reopened, because of connections to the scene, which all sort of started in the same sort of place, and the attitude that I brought, and I still hopefully bring to putting my events on. And so John Hegley came and did the Utter Lutonia Christmas gig, sold it out, storming show, really, really good, with a local support, on the same stage on equal billing. And that's how Utter always works. Everyone's on the same stage on equal billing. Everyone gets paid the same. Except when there's a big headliner, but most of the time everybody who's on gets paid exactly the same money. And I try and level that stage and make it open to anyone, and I say to people, if you fancy yourself on this stage in the future, come and talk to me, because otherwise I'm going to stagnate and I need new people coming in, and people do, thankfully. Though more could if they wanted to, but I'll get booked up. But the intention is there. And then it's the same attitude though. Keep it open, keep it equal, make it accessible, declaredly accessible. You know, not just like leaving it up to the courage of people in the audience to come up and ask. Explicitly saying, if you want to do it, come and have a go if you think you want to. And that all comes, I think, apart. You know, I've stayed true to what I learnt and what empowered, buzzwordy stuff, but what empowered and encouraged and set me up to have had, as well as a working life, a creative life that's been sustained, you know, and sustained for the sake of the creative stuff rather than sustained for any other reason. I mean, it's nice every now and then to get paid for stuff, and these days I actually manage to, and I do some work with Tangled Feet, and that again is all part of being part of a scene, part of an organisation, and keeping things open and keeping things loose. Yeah, in a jazzy way. I'm not a jazz person myself, but I appreciate that idea of, let's just jump in and see what happens.
Well, it's interesting because not so much to do with this conversation, but I didn't realise there was a wood-green connection, because in the 80s I had a big wood-green connection because through the music. So we used to work a lot at a place called the Starting Gate. Do you remember?
I don't know, no.
Yeah, it was like a big old pub in Wood Green. And
the pub on the corner was the Goose in the City.
Yeah.
There was the Fisherman's Arms down the side street there.
And then there was Wood Green Arts Centre. That was
right.
Big.
That may well have
been
moved on before I arrived.
Yeah.
But the library were pretty. The reason the writing group petered out a little bit was the library started getting funny about who was having what room and when. And when we started, it was like, there's a room.
Yeah, it's like a lot of venues, kind of health and safety and the administration side.
Well, there's like this need to monetise the space rather than the fact that it's a community resource and it should be there for people from the community to come and use it.
Yeah.
And I hope again, like things are coming back. I think people are recognising.
Yeah, I mean, if we focus on Luton for a couple of seconds, it's still full of creative people, isn't it? It's just amazing.
And it is, and I think organisations and the people who are working are recognising that the only way to get new people in is to open doors and say, come in, what do you want, rather than here's some stuff for you.
Yeah.
No one likes that, and especially Luton doesn't like being told.
No, Luton doesn't like that. It's a different age.
Here's some stuff for you. It's like, what would you like to see, or what do you want to make, what do you want to show?
Yeah.
And it is absolutely ramjammed, and you can see what's happening with Revolut and over in Marsh House. There's loads of really good small events bubbling up. People are putting on their own things, expressing themselves and sharing ideas.
Yeah, a big visual arts community now. And, And great that if kind of Hightown becomes the place where people are, and the cultural court becomes where they perform and where they.
And that should be the thing, it's almost got that kind of classic kind of, Shoreditch in the early 2000s, or whatever bit of New York it was in the mid 60s. It's like it's cheap to live.
Yeah.
People can find a space. They can have a little bit of studio space. They can make a bit of a mess. And then just over the railway lines, at the other side of the tracks, are these prestige venues where you can go and show stuff. But the gatekeepers, I think, are not keeping the gate as tightly as they did for a little while, and that's a brilliant thing.
Yeah, it's loosening up a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, Lee, thanks so much for having a chat, mate.
Most welcome, thank you.